Okay, I think we'll go ahead and get started. Folks might join here in just a moment, but we can bring them up to speed as they join. Thank you all for attending the first Engage 2045 community chat. This is chat number 1. We're focusing on the policies and actions questionnaire. Really appreciate you chiming in today. And as you'll see as we walk through the information about the chat today, this is really a meeting for you all, residents of James City County, to be asking questions about the process, this particular round of public engagement, and particularly the questionnaire that is now live and that will be hopefully getting your feedback through. As a thank you for the folks that are on the call today, there is a prize for attendance, a $20 gift certificate to Emily's Donuts. So by registering and participating in the chat today, you've registered for that, and we'll contact you via email if you're the winner. So hopefully one of you has a sweet tooth and you get the Emily's Donuts gift certificate. Just a couple of housekeeping items. We will be having everybody on mute for just a portion of the meeting today as we present some background information and just kind of share with you what we're wanting to accomplish today and about the questionnaire. But we will be asking you to unmute, and we do want to hear from you and get your questions here in just a short bit. So let's start off with a short poll, just kind of thinking about what brought you to the meeting today, what made you interested in logging in and joining this first community chat. What made you decide to participate today? And we're interested to see what your response is. And Alex is our behind the scenes guy, and once everybody has responded to that question, he's going to give us the results up on the screen so we can see what people's thinking is today. And while we're waiting for that, I'll introduce the two, myself, Leanne King. I'm with Clearing Associates. We're on the consultant team that's helping to develop the updated comprehensive plan for James City County. And with me here today is Tammy Rosario, who is Assistant Director for James City County Community Development Department. So you'll be seeing us throughout this meeting, helping to facilitate, as well as a number of other participants that you'll see the bridge to Jamestown Island in their background. They're going to be helping to answer your questions today and help you out as we move through this community chat. All right. So it looks like everybody has been involved previously and want to continue the momentum. So excellent. Thank you for continuing the momentum. We really like to see folks continue to stay engaged in the planning process. It's really helpful when we've got folks that have the history and kind of get to see how all these pieces fit together and build upon each other. So let's just provide a little bit of overview about the planning process and what we're accomplishing through this round 3 of engagement. So again, Engage 2045 is the planning process to update the James City County Comprehensive Plan. It's a long-range policy plan for the community that guides growth, development, housing, transportation, a whole host of different issues. There is a 5-phase process for the actual plan and the different work products that are developed. As you see, we started in 2019 and we will be completing the process this year. And there are 4 main points of engagement where we're working with community members, residents, to understand your hopes and aspirations for the future of James City County. In the first round, listening and envisioning, that was where the 5 public input priorities were established, which really set the stage for guiding the rest of the planning efforts, along with the 2019 citizen survey. Round 2, exploring and testing, was an opportunity to take a closer look at the current adopted plan goals and see how those might change moving forward, and also exploring different growth and land use alternatives for the future of James City County. So building off those two rounds of engagement, we are now in round three, deciding and affirming. And really the purpose of this round of engagement is to determine what the policy direction and actions of the plan are going to be. So this is really starting to dig into what's going to be in the plan. So I'm glad that you could join today, because this is really an important part of the planning process. Round three has two main components to it. So I mentioned earlier the questionnaires, that this is the way that we are capturing feedback from residents during round three. And we have three questionnaires. One is live today, the Policies and Actions questionnaire, and two will be coming online here shortly in the coming weeks. Character Design Guidelines and the Future Land Use Map will be available here shortly. And again, the questionnaires are the main way that really the only way that we're collecting feedback during this round three of engagement. The community chats, this first one that we're on here, the purpose of this portion of round three is really to give the opportunity to residents to ask questions about anything that you have related to this project. It could be something related to the process itself, but we definitely want to make sure that you feel informed in responding to the three questionnaires. So we're going to kind of focus our efforts today and at future chats in helping to guide you through those questionnaires and make sure you understand all of the choices available to you. So again, the questionnaires are the sole way to provide feedback through round three. We have the three questionnaires. Policies and Actions is what we're focusing on today. The Character Design Guidelines and Future Land Use Map questionnaires will be available on January 25th. So you can check back to the project website listed here, or just do a Google search for Engage 2045 and it will bring it up. All of the project questionnaires are available on the website, and once they're all launched, they'll be open through February 21st. And I'll have those dates again at the end of this chat so you can see those. For the community chats, again, this is your opportunity to ask any questions that you want. We're here to serve as a resource for you to make sure you're comfortable in responding to the questionnaires. There are 4 total chats. This one and the next one are focusing on the Policies and Actions questionnaire. And then the following 2 chats focus on the Character Design Guidelines and the Future Land Use Map questionnaire. And again, there are more details on the project website for signing up for those. Each of these 2 groups of chats are the same, so don't feel like you have to sign up for the next Policies and Actions questionnaire chat, because it will be very similar to today. We do encourage you to invite friends, family, colleagues, neighbors that are interested in the future of James City County to participate in a chat. We encourage you to spread the word and let others know this is available to them. Okay, so with that, I'm going to hand the baton over to Tammy, and she's going to share some information about references available to you.
Thank you, Leanne. Certainly our hope is that your participation in today's community chat will provide you with all the information you need to answer the questionnaires to get you to that comfort level. But for those of you who might like a deeper dive on any of the subjects, I'd like to highlight a special feature that we've created for you. So looking at this landing page for round 3, I think the link for which has been posted in the chat, you can see that we've created on the right-hand side of the screen a Learn section with links to recorded presentations on a variety of topics that mirror those in the questionnaires. By simply clicking one of those links, this will bring you to a YouTube page where you can watch staff presentations to the Planning Commission Working Group as it begins to review the different chapters of the comprehensive plan. As Leanne is showing, this ranges from economic development to the environment to the housing chapter, parks and rec, public facilities, transportation, and so on. Each 15 to 25-minute presentation goes through key planning influences, existing conditions and programs, and community guidance received to date. The Planning Commission Working Group, the body empowered to look through each of these chapters and go through and develop the draft plan through this process, has found it to be a good foundation for discussing these issues and thinking about the changes that might be desired in the coming months. And we hope you think they are a useful resource as well. So with that, I'll turn it over to Leanne to talk more specifically about our policies and actions questionnaire.
Great, thanks, Tammy. So just a little bit more overview, and then we'll be asking you all to unmute and give us your questions, and we want to hear from you. So just again, as Tammy mentioned, this is the landing page for the community chats and questionnaires. Just a little bit about what's on here. This participate has the link to the policies and actions questionnaire. Future questionnaires, the character design guidelines and land use map will be loaded here when those are live. For those that may not want to do an online questionnaire, there are paper copies available at the locations listed here. And then, as you all probably saw when you registered, the community chat information is listed here on the page, and you can click to one of these to register attendance. And also these will be recorded chats that will be available on the county's YouTube playlist. So you can send this on to friends and colleagues if you want to, encourage them to attend a future one, or encourage them to watch the one that you've attended. All right, so now we're going to dive into the policies and actions questionnaire, because again, this is kind of what we're focusing on today. Once you click on that link, there is some information about the questionnaire that provides a little bit of background about the planning process and the previous rounds of engagement that led us to round 3, similar to what I just shared with you all in the PowerPoint presentation. One important point, this is the last opportunity to help shape the draft plan. There will be an opportunity to engage during the formal public hearing process, but really in terms of creation of the plan, this is the last opportunity. So it's really important to give us your feedback through the questionnaire, and also encourage others as well to do the same. So there are instructions on the page for the questionnaire. There are 19 questions, substantive questions, that address 4 of the 5 planning priorities that were established in round 1. Affordable housing, nature, economic development, and quality of life. And then we also have one about setting priorities, and I'll walk you through those. So there's information here about the community chats, and then you scroll down and there is the questionnaire right there on the screen. You don't have to click another link. And what you'll see here is that there are subsections listed across the tops. This first one's affordable and workforce housing. Then we'll have nature. They kind of pop up when they do that. Quality of life, economic development, setting priorities, and about you. This is a section where we ask you to provide a little bit of information about yourself and how you heard about this opportunity, so that we can kind of track the best ways to publicize these types of things, and also make sure we're getting a good representation of community residents through the questionnaire results. Again, the purpose of this is really, of these questions, is to help us understand what your preferences and ideas are with respect to the policies and actions that should be included in the plan. So I'm going to spend just a few moments here going over this first round. Actually, sorry, before I do that, I want to do a quick poll. Alex, if you could bring up that second poll. So we've got several topics that we're covering today, and we want to know which one you're most interested in. That might help us understand where we should spend a little bit more time during the question and answer portion of this. And so while you all are filling that out, I'll just remind you that here, I'm just going to go through these questions here, and then you are welcome to unmute and don't be shy. Feel free to speak up and ask any questions that you have about the process, about any of the different questions within this section that we're walking through now. We will go through each of these sections separately, so you can kind of focus your questions as we're in that, but feel free to ask any question that you have. We're here to help you. Okay, so it looks like we've got a mix of folks that have questions. So 40% of you have questions on affordable and workforce housing, and then 20% have questions on nature, quality of life, and learning about the process. So and other questions might pop up as we walk through this as well. So we'll try to make sure and pace ourselves so that we can go through each of these subsections and give you an opportunity to ask questions. Okay, so in the affordable and workforce housing subsection of the questionnaire, there are two main questions. And the first question is really focused on getting your feedback for which types of strategies that came out of a workforce housing task force report that was produced in 2019 by the task force that was set up by James City County. Which of the strategies that are listed here would you like to prioritize under different rankings? So there are 9 different rankings that you can list these under. And this will help us understand which of these has kind of the highest support and which maybe be less supported by the community. You also have answer choices to say you don't support any of the approaches or you're not sure. And then the second question is really focused on asking where you might support future workforce housing development. And there's some information here that describes what that might look like. And then the answer choices here really list out the locations within the community where we might want to locate future workforce housing within the community. And again, this also has an option to not support the development or not sure that you know how you want to respond to this question. So with that being said, I will ask folks to unmute, and I'd be happy to hand this off to Tammy to field any questions related to these 2 questions or anything else related to the planning process. And don't feel free to jump in when you're ready. Don't feel like you got to be shy. If you've got a question.
I know that this sometimes can be a little overwhelming to look at a questionnaire and you know, all the information that might be presented on it, and to know exactly what your questions might be until you're really sitting and thinking through it. We have some guests with us today who are from each of these areas, and Vaughn and Marion in particular were leading the effort with the Workforce Housing Task Force on a 1.5 year long effort to come up with a series of recommendations. And Vaughn, I'll just ask that if you might describe that group's objective and you know, in very brief form, you know, the report that they came up with and where that people can find that information.
Sure, Tammy, thank you. So as was mentioned, this was a task force of selected citizens numbering about 16 people, and they met over about a 19-month period, culminating with a report that was accepted by the Board of Supervisors. And in that report, the citizens in the task force looked at affordable and workforce housing, looked at what the demographic in the county was, both socioeconomic, also looked at land use policies and how that impacts housing. It was a guided task force with our own consultants, and the members took the question of affordable and workforce housing and approached it with policies, coming up with policies on how best to address it, looking both at the cost ranges that might be utilized, looking at the quality of the structures or the type of construction we'd like to have, whether that would be single family detached or multifamily, looked at the question of ADUs, accessory dwelling units. So the policies put forth and accepted by the board are those that some of them are mentioned in the questionnaire, and they relate that the task force report can actually be found online. If you go to James City County, look under the Neighborhood Development tab, and then under that, you can see the full task force report there.
Thanks, Vaughn. Were there any questions that folks might have as a follow-up or something related to housing in the county? We have these two experts. And I'll also mention that you can put your question in the chat if you feel uncomfortable or saying it out loud or just prefer that method.
Tammy, this is Kira Cook. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, how are you?
Great, thank you.
Happy New Year, everyone. This may not be an appropriate question for this venue, and if it is not, please just say that it's not. But I'm curious if you can share with us what the feedback has been from the public around the topic of affordable housing. I mean, I think we all know that you can have a study and a group of people who do a deep dive and come up with a recommendation, and then that recommendation is made, but the public may not appreciate that recommendation or that series of recommendations. So do you have a sense through this process thus far how affordable advocates of affordable housing policy are being received in terms of how that will be included in the comprehensive plan moving forward? Does that make sense? Have you gotten positive or negative feedback from your citizenry thus far?
That's a great question. And I'll just start it off quickly and then maybe pass it on to Leanne, has been summarizing a lot of the input for us, and Vaughn if they have anything to add. But I just wanted to make a pitch for folks to look at our round 1 summary engagement and our round 2 engagement summary on our website. So that's something that if you would like to have sort of a longer form look at, we do have those posted on our website, and we can make sure that you can find that if you have any difficulty. But I think it's under the meetings and events page, and also the CPT has been working on that. So that's just a real quick resource that's available to you. And then I'll let Leanne or Vaughn add in anything specific to affordable and workforce housing.
So I'll just jump in real quick, and then Vaughn, feel free to add to it. The only thing I was going to add is that, I mentioned the citizen participation survey that was conducted in 2019. And one of the interesting things that came out of that survey is what's called a satisfaction gap. So there were several different questions asked about residents, kind of what things they think were important and whether or not they were satisfied with the condition of those different issues. And affordable housing was one of the topics that was raised. And it had, of all the topics, I mean, I think James City County, in comparison to other communities, the satisfaction rates were quite good. But of all of the different topics, the affordable workforce housing one was the one that had kind of the widest gap between what people felt was important and their satisfaction with how that issue was being addressed, or the condition of that issue. So I think that let us know that this is an important topic for residents. And we received also some good feedback in round 1, which coupled up with that citizen survey helped us understand that really this topic, as you can see here, is one of the public input priorities in this planning process, an important one to be working on. Luckily, we've got the benefit of the work that the task force did, and so we can really leverage that work and engagement and all of the assessment work that was done as part of that to help feed into this process. And that's what we've tried to do, is leverage that. And then I think, Vaughn, I'm not sure if there's anything else you want to add to that.
Actually, there's not much more that I can add. We've not had any official feedback other than what you've discussed about regarding public engagement. Anecdotally, we know that the conversation continues around the county I was hoping that more people would participate in this process. And I think part of what Mary and I are interested in doing is trying to get the word out so that more people do participate in this process as a means of gathering feedback.
Great. If we don't have any more questions, oh, sorry, was there a question? I thought I heard somebody. Feel free to chime in if you have another question. I think what I'll do is I'll move on to the nature subsection of the questionnaire and just give you a quick overview of the different questions that are included within here. So nature has a few more questions. I think there are 5 that are included in here. And several of the questions you'll probably notice have a little bit of background about some of the prior learning that we've received from residents through previous public engagement rounds or the citizen survey. So again, we try to build on what we've learned previously, and so ask more refined questions to make sure we're understanding things correctly. And so this one is related, this first question here, number 3, is related to protection of natural lands and open spaces and the types of measures that you might support. And you can select all that you support here. The next question 4 talks about the types of natural lands, undeveloped lands, and open spaces that you support protecting. So you can have some, give us some guidance about the types of places that you think you want the county to be working to protect. 5th question is, what should we be doing more of, and asking for your top 5 choices related to different kind of natural and resource and sustainability protection efforts. 6th question focuses on actions related to or actions in response to increasing sea level rise and recurring flooding, and different types of strategies that can be employed. And then finally, for nature, we have, what are your greatest concerns related to the quality of the county's waterway and water sources? And you can select all that apply here. And I apologize, I forgot to mention this earlier. There are these buttons at the bottom here that are important to note. This allows you to go back in this survey. This allows you to go to the next subsection. And this actually allows you to save it. So if you're in the middle of cooking dinner and you need to go eat, you can save it and come back to it. I believe it'll send you an email with your current status. So any questions related to the nature topic or the questions that we have included here? And Tammy, I'll hand it back over to you.
Thank you. I want to make sure I give the floor to anyone who has a question before I offer one up that might stimulate your thinking and just be a good opportunity for us to sort of set the stage for you. Tony is our Director of Stormwater and Resource Protection, and I wondered if you might just describe some of the ways that the county works to protect nature today.
Sure, happy to do that, Tammy. Good afternoon, everyone. So the Stormwater and Resource Protection Division kind of serves as the local enforcement agency to oversee environmental regulations through the county code. We play many different roles related to stormwater management. We oversee development plans that come in to make sure that any proposed development meets stormwater quality and quantity requirements. We inspect construction sites during construction. We oversee the TMDL requirements that the county has, as we are delegated from the state to oversee clean water through DEQ VSMP regulations. So the county serves as sort of a mini agency to oversee all these programs. In addition to that, we sort of have a pollution prevention program where we have an illicit discharge detection ordinance where we oversee and investigate complaints or concerns about illicit discharges or dumping. We also have a pet waste cleanup program called Scoop the Poop, and we oversee a turf love program where we help to advise homeowners on proper applications of fertilizers and so forth. In addition to that, we have a stormwater capital improvement program where we help to protect streams and resources through BMP retrofit projects and stream restoration projects. A lot of the nutrient credits gained from those projects help to meet our Chesapeake Bay TMDL goals at James City County. And I know I'm going a really deep dive on this, so I'm happy to answer any questions anyone has about environmental regulations at the county.
Well, certainly if something comes to you later, again, you can bring it up later in this call. You could enter a question into the chat box, or certainly give us a call and we'll try and help answer your question.
I was just going to add, Tammy, that this nature topic is one that we saw both in round 1 and 2 as being, I won't say the priority, but a very high priority among residents that participated in terms of how we can protect kind of the natural qualities of the county, and also kind of the rural and community character aspects that relate to that as well. So this is an important one that we're hoping to get people's feedback on. Okay, we can move on to the next section, quality of life. So we've got a number of questions here, and just like the topic quality of life, there's a variety of different types of questions that are included in here. Quality of life is one of those terms that captures a lot of things. So this first question here, number 8, touches on rural protection, and that's a cornerstone of the county's valued rural character, protecting those rural lands. And so there's some different strategies here for how rural protection efforts might happen in the future. And those really kind of relate in large part to the county's primary services area. So that's the first question, and you select all that apply in terms of the strategies that you support. The second question here, number 9, is that there has been strong support for walking and biking options in the community. A lot of folks during this process have expressed interest in having more walking and biking opportunities. And so we want to understand what types of facilities can best support residents, and have a number of different types of facilities kind of generally described here. And we're asking folks to rank the ones that they most prefer and kind of least prefer among these. And again, there are options for kind of opting out of that if you don't have a response or don't support that. And then the final question under quality of life is related to reduction of greenhouse gas emissions, and thinking about the different methods of transportation that you think the county should invest in. And this is also another ranking question where we're asking you to identify among the strategies listed which are kind of the higher ranked and the lower ranked in your opinion in terms of how the county should be focusing its resources. So I'll pause there, hand it off to Tammy, and see if you all have any questions.
We have folks with us today who can help answer your questions regarding land use in the primary service area and transportation issues, among others. Just to, again, get the juices flowing, because I know this is a question that comes up frequently. It's a very technical term, the primary service area, but I thought maybe Thomas Weissong, our senior planner, would talk a little bit about what that really is and why that might be important for the county and to be expressed in the comprehensive plan.
Sure, thanks, Tammy. I'd be happy to. So the primary service area, it's the county's principal tool for managing growth, and it's been in place since 1975. And as a growth management tool, it uses a combined growth area or service area boundary to direct growth to areas in the county and to land that's most suitable to support growth and more intensive development. There's a lot of benefits to the primary service area, which includes increasing the public benefit per dollar spent, encouraging the efficient utilization of public facilities and services, helping to ensure that facilities and services are available where and when they're needed, also to promote public health and safety, to minimize well and septic failures within the PSA, and to encourage the utilization of rural lands, which are those areas outside the primary service area, for economically beneficial agriculture, forestry, and related uses. And another benefit of the PSA is that it helps preserve the unique rural character of James City County by directing growth where it's most appropriate within its boundaries. And I'd be happy to answer any questions about that because it is a bit of a technical term that folks might not be familiar with.
Thanks, Thomas. And certainly if, the primary service area doesn't ring any bells and something else in this section is something that interested you, we're happy to answer those questions as well.
One quick question for you, Tammy. If someone wanted to see a map of the primary service area, would that be, is that in one of the videos that you shared earlier?
Great question. Thomas, I'm thinking we didn't show that as part of the Planning Commission Working Group presentation itself, but certainly we can make sure that we post that in an obvious location. We do have the entire 2035 comprehensive plan, which was adopted in 2015, posted to the website, and the land use map is a component of that. Thomas, is there a more easily findable location than that which I just mentioned?
Well, that's a great place to go. The other plug I would make is that we do have GIS in the county, which is an online website that shows property and has lots of great information like the zoning, the recommended land use, and as well as the primary service area. And you can turn on that layer and see which properties are within there and which ones are not. So if somebody had a particular property they were interested in, they could look up that address, turn on that layer, and see the primary service area.
And that property information system is accessible right off the county homepage, jamescitycountyva.gov. It's one of the links in the lower portion of it, and that's right from there. Somebody could just, as you said, enter in the area where they're interested and explore all the different great layers that are available to them.
Maybe, Thomas, when we move on to economic development, maybe you could capture the link to the comp plan, the 2035 comp plan, and post that in the chat. And then if people want it, they can grab it from there. One thing to mention to folks that's a little bit of a challenge with Zoom is you can see stuff in the chat, but you can't really copy hyperlinks. So you might want to click on the link and bring up a browser, and then you can just jump back over to the meeting if you want a quick access to something that's linked in the chat. Okay, we'll move on over to the economic development subsection. And we have 3 questions here. So question number 11, again, kind of building off of some of the previous rounds of engagement and talking about residents showing strong support for doing more to attract higher paying jobs in the county. And this particular question is kind of building off that thinking, is asking if you would support the county being involved with different infrastructure extensions to support new economic development that would bring in those jobs. So that's this is a pretty yes, maybe, no type answer choice here. And obviously, there's a little bit more description here so that you can kind of fully understand what the question is. The next question, number 12, talks about how things are changing in terms of employment environments, and There are different market preferences for the types of places that workers like to work within, and that results in the businesses where they work making different locational decisions. And this idea that complete communities where employees can shop, dine, recreate, and live close to work are becoming more and more important. And an example of that in your community is Newtown. And so this type of development, this mixed use community type of development, received more support than the current type of development within the county through our round 2 engagement. And so we're asking people to select the kind of choices that you support in terms of where you might want to see these types of development happen in the future. And again, you can opt out of supporting this or select the not sure, I need to know more. So that helps us understand the places that you might be supportive of kind of changing to that more complete community type format. And then the next question actually relates to something that many of us are doing now, which is working from home. Hence, we have these nice backdrops so that you can't see all the stuff behind us. But more small business owners are choosing to base their operations out of home locations for a variety of reasons. The county in their current ordinance has restrictions on home-based businesses, and this is a topic that has come up within planning and thinking about the fact that, there might be more people working from home even once we're kind of beyond the pandemic. And so we want to understand if there were to be more flexibility in terms of these regulations that are applied, what are most potential concern to you? So these are all different types of issues that can arise related to home-based businesses located within a neighborhood. And we want to understand the ones that you're most concerned about and maybe the ones that you're less concerned about, and there might be an opportunity to have a little bit more flexibility, or at least kind of consider that. So I'll pause there and hand it back over to Tammy.
Thank you. Again, I want to prioritize your questions, make sure we get all of those addressed. So I hope you don't feel shy in asking any of the ones that might be on your mind, even if they're not specific to these questions that we've presented to you today. Leanne, just to keep us on track, do you think we have time to talk about any of these, or might, if there aren't any questions, might it be better to move on to the next section?
Sure. Yeah, we can definitely move to setting priorities. So this is a really fun one. We spent some time thinking through how we wanted to ask this question because it's a pretty important one. And setting priorities. So one important thing that I just want to kind of share as background, and there's some language in the introduction to the questions here, is that the comprehensive planning process sets the long-range policy direction for the county, and the plan itself is used as a tool by the Board of Supervisors, by the Planning Commission, by staff, and by other by community residents to really help guide decision making so that there's a common vision and kind of common set of policies to guide decision making. And part of that decision making relates to how the county invests its staff resources and its financial resources. And we know that there are some key topics, the 5 public input priorities that came out of the first round of engagement and that we've continued to build upon during this process, that are really kind of priorities in the minds of residents. And so this question, or this series of questions, I should say, really starts to gain an understanding of, if you had, 100% of the resources that you could spend on these different topics, whether that be, again, staff capacity or actual investments, how would you like the county to prioritize its investments among these different topic areas? And so these You'll see here there's protecting sensitive environmental features as one bucket, protecting and preserving rural aspects of the county's community character, supporting development of affordable workforce housing, making our community more economically resilient, expanding existing and creating new quality of life amenities. And so you're given 100% of resources, and you can allocate whatever portion of that 100% to each of these different buckets. You can also choose to not invest in those initiatives if you see so. And then this will, I believe, force you to total up to 100%. Can't spend more than 100% and move forward. It'll give you an error message if you try to do that. But again, this helps us understand what the priorities are among these different types of initiatives and the way that the county could invest its resources. Another note related to this is that the strategic plan, some of you might be familiar with that. The county adopted the 2035 strategic plan, I believe, in 2018. Might have been 2017, I forget now. But that is the document that is used by the Board of Supervisors to really kind of help identify what the game plan is for the next 5, 10, and 15-year increments in terms of priorities that different departments should be working on, and also resources and where they should be investing their money. So very specific funding plans are kind of more, those are identified and more concretely laid out in the strategic plan, but it's the intention that in the comprehensive plan, we can at least provide some guidance to an update to the future strategic plan about how resources might be spent on these different topic areas. So those are kind of two planning tools that the county uses that have an important relationship. And so this is the first step in identifying, how future resources might be spent. So that I'll hand it off to Tammy. Oh, I think you, there you go.
So I'll just pause here for a moment and make sure you have opportunity to ask a question if you have one. And it sounds like we might not.
All right, well, I'll just go quickly over, and again, we can jump back to any of these other topics if you, or a process related question or anything that you want to ask about planning in James City County, we're happy to answer it. This final section here is again about you. So this is just to help us understand as a participant completing the questionnaire, who you are, how you heard about this, how long you've lived in the county, just some demographic information that we can use. And the way we use that is to compare the aggregate data that we'll get from all of the respondents to the questionnaires. And we'll compare that to the census figures to see if who we're hearing from kind of generally aligns with the representation within the community according to these different topic areas that are listed here. So that's a really helpful portion of this questionnaire, and it should hopefully take you just 30 seconds or so to click on the buttons here. They're pretty easy questions. And one other just kind of housekeeping thing I wanted to mention to you all is that there is a submit button. And so you want to make sure and click on that submit button so that your questionnaire does get submitted to us and we collect all of that data once you're finished with it, especially if you save and come back, it'll be important to submit that. And then we also have the option here to enter into prize drawings. So there'll be future prize drawings, and people are not required to come to these community chats. They can just complete the questionnaire on their own, but they're available to both folks who complete the questionnaire and that join the community chats. All right, we've got about 10 minutes left of the meeting, so we are happy to take any questions again that you have or comments, really anything that you would like to discuss with us. You've got a great team of people on the call that are an amazing wealth of knowledge about James City County on a variety of topics, and so I encourage you to take advantage of having them here, and we'd like to answer any questions that you have. And hopefully that silence means you're pretty comfortable with this, and that's totally fine. That's kind of what our goal was with providing these community chats, is to make sure that you feel comfortable and don't have any questions, or at least know how to find out more information to explore before you take the questionnaire. I can bring this back up if anybody has another question, but in the meantime, I'm going to bring up our little slideshow here again, and just remind you about the kind of final dates that are or dates that are coming up that you can be aware of. So again, excuse me, sorry about that. The questionnaires currently available are the policies and actions questionnaire that we've been going over during this chat. There are 2 questionnaires, the character design guidelines and the future land use map questionnaires will be launched on January 25th. And again, you can go back to that main landing page that we showed you, and those will be live links off of that page. And all 3 questionnaires, once these 2 are launched on the 25th, they'll all be open through February 21st. So almost a month from the time that those 2 are launched. And again, on the community chats, we've got another one coming up on January 21st. I believe that's next Thursday at 6:30 p.m. It will be the exact same format that we had today, so don't feel like you need to attend that one, but we do encourage you to spread the word. One of the best ways that we've found to get people to participate in these efforts is for people that they know and trust, to encourage them to do so, and to kind of express that this is really an important opportunity, and it's the last real opportunity to help guide the draft plan. So please, 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 if you can ask 5 friends, neighbors, colleagues to complete the questionnaire, that's the priority, because that's how we're going to get their feedback and understand their preferences and what they support. But if they have questions, you could also encourage them to participate in one of these community chats. So for this questionnaire we just went over, we've got one more next Thursday at 6:30. And then for the other 2 questionnaires, we're going to cover both questionnaires at 2 other chats, one on January 28th at 12 noon, and one on February 4th at 6:30. And there'll be a very similar format to this. We'll just be going over 2 questionnaires during each of those chats, as opposed to just one. And again, there are details on the project website that you can see at the bottom here for logging in and reserving a seat as part of one of those chats. So we encourage you to do that. And if there are 2 things that you do after the call today, the 2 main things we want to make sure you do are, 1, complete the questionnaire, because that's really going to give us the input that we need. And then 2, to ask 5 friends, neighbors, colleagues, spouses. You can even ask your children if they're old enough and interested and have an opinion, to participate and fill out or actually we'd like them to fill out all 3 questionnaires, but the one that's available now, the policies and actions questionnaire. So I will stop there and just give you all the floor and see if there are any final questions or comments or that people want to share. So one thing, just we do want to stay on for the full length of the meeting, just in case any last minute questions pop up in your head, and feel free to either write them in the chat, or you can just speak up while I'm talking. I'm happy to pause and let you ask a question. But one thing while we're rounding out the meeting that I wanted to share is a little bit about how we're going to use the information that's gathered as part of these questionnaires. So we will be having a formal reporting out. We'll take all of the data that comes from the questionnaires, and we're going to assess that data and prepare reports. And we'll be presenting that information to both the community participation team and the Planning Commission working group that are help guiding this Engage 2045 planning process. And that information, again, is really going to be important in helping to guide the policy direction and actions that are included in the plan. There's already been some introductory work to start looking at the comprehensive plan chapters and how we might want to be changing them. There have been updates to data, and a lot of that you'll see in those videos that Tammy mentioned at the start of our chat. But this next round of information is going to be very, very critical to helping the Planning Commission Working Group in particular, and the Board of Supervisors and staff in understanding what the community wants to do in terms of policy direction and actions to really start achieving the goals and the vision of the plan. So that's how they're going to be used, and all of that will be documented and available again on the project website. And we're also trying to leave a bread trail in kind of the guidance actually within the comprehensive plan document itself. So when you look at specific chapters, there will be information that will help describe what the public sentiments were related to that topic and some of the statistics related to the input received during the process. Any other thoughts or questions? All right, well, we've got one little short poll that we wanted to ask you to plug in answers to before we sign off today. And this is just, again, helpful for us to know if this was helpful for you. This is kind of a new approach. Again, a lot of new approaches during the pandemic in terms of how we engage people. Normally we do this thing in person, but we're trying to do it safely here. Wanted to make sure this is something that was helpful for you. And then finally, how you heard about today's chat. If you could let us know which kind of media source or how you learned about it, that would be really helpful for us, because we want to make sure and continue to spread the word in the ways that people are hearing about this through. So if you could complete that exit questionnaire. Again, we greatly appreciate you participating. We'll stay on the line here for a few more minutes to answer any questions that you might have. But please feel free, you don't need to stay on the line if you need to move on to your next meeting or grab a bite to eat or whatever the next item is on your agenda today. But we'll be staying online to answer any questions you might have. And just real quick, wanted to mention that I talked earlier about the community participation team, and we've got a few members of the community participation team that have joined us today, and just wanted to thank them for plugging in and joining, and all of your help preparing for launching the questionnaires and the community chats. I believe Rich, Julie, and Jenny have been able to join us today. So thanks for being able to do that and all that you've done up to this point. And there, just as we're rounding out the call here, there are just a few other resources I wanted to point out to you that are in the chat. So Katie has posted a link to the public engagement summary. So if you're interested in learning more about the previous engagement efforts and what the outcomes of those were, you can click on that link. There's also a link to the project website so that you can, again, get to the landing page for the questionnaires and for reserving a spot at the community chats. That's also included in here. All right, so we are at 1 o'clock. This is formally the end of our meeting. We're happy to stay on if there are any questions that folks have. But this kind of ends the kind of formal portion of community chat number 1. And again, thank you for participating, and congratulations, whoever the winner of the donuts gift certificate is. Hope you like donuts.